Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for November 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Slowly creeping into the weekend and the big game on Sunday. Well, some positive, I guess, news from an injury perspective. It does seem that for the most part, everyone other than Lane is pretty healthy. Cam Jurgens still sat out with concussion, so I guess he's in the concussion protocol. But, Lane is going to be hard, so it's going to come down on Fred Johnson, and Fred has a good attitude. Fred's like, it's my time to show what I can do. Certainly there's some drop-off from Lane, but as the old adage goes, your best ability is your availability, so Fred Johnson will be available. I don't know what that means for the 6 offensive lineman set that they have been running. I'm not sure. I mean, I know he's athletic. I don't know if they could. I know he plays mostly center and guard, but Willie Lampkin, been waiting for him to get into a game since the Eagles picked him up. Not sure if he can slide in there as the 6th offensive lineman and provide some depth. But should be a decent game. Looking forward to this one. Probably one of the bigger, obviously the first game of the season was looking forward to that because it was banner night, but really looking forward to this Eagles-Cowboys game and one that I've been looking forward to for more than any, I guess, in recent memory. So Eagles-Cowboys, enough said with the Kelly Green jerseys. There was a trailer released yesterday for the NFC East Hard Knocks in season. I'm not sure when that's going to be released. We'll see what happens. I'm not a big Hard Knocks person, but from what has gone on in the NFC East this year, should be an entertaining one, I say. So I'll probably definitely tune in for that. And then, of course, the other big story has been Derek Gunn's report. He almost doubled down on it, getting kind of mad at fans and people saying, why would you do this? And essentially he's saying that, listen, this is what's been brought to me. My job is to provide the information. I'm not trying to derail the team, but basically just reaffirm that a lot of people are saying that are unhappy with the way Jalen is not necessarily running the plays in the game as he does in practice. And Jalen responded to that yesterday in his press conference, and I thought it was good. He essentially said, nobody has come to me in the locker room or anything. He's also not surprised. He said, as the quarterback of the team, when things go well, there's a lot of spotlight and attention on me. And when things need to be fixed and need to get better, things come obviously back on me. Talked about holding himself accountable. And for the most part, seemed as though he was willing to, if you got a problem, come to him. So I don't know if this is a huge issue because teams, I talk about it all the time with people you work with. You don't necessarily have to get along or even agree with what people do. You just have to figure out a way to do it. And to their credit, the Eagles have figured out a way to win with all of this. So we'll see what happens. But to me, I see a big game loading from Jalen. A lot of times when his back is against the wall, when the hair on the back of his back stands up, that's when he tends to respond and come out and have a monster game. So I'm getting a feeling maybe a monster game is loading here for Jalen Hurts. But that is the Eagles coverage. We'll have more on them tomorrow. Also, just a quick programming note, the new Brotherly Birds breakdown will be out tonight. Kyle and I will talk about Jalen and all things Eagles-Cowboys, as well as recap some of the Lions game. That'll be available likely around halftime of the Thursday night football game. And in all of their history, the Eagles have never played the Cowboys on November 20th. So to keep the Dallas week vibes going, just going to bring up and let you remember the 1991 game, September, when the Eagles defense sacked Troy Aikman 11 times. It was great. 24-0 win for the Eagles back in 1991. So there's your Eagles-Cowboys fix for the day. Kind of amazing that in both the long history of both teams, they've never played on November 20th. Now, as I'm looking through my sheets here, lots of games against the Giants, but not one against the Cowboys. All right, let's move to the Sixers, who third quarter struggles continue. They lose to the Raptors 121-112. They were up at halftime. They tried to come back in the fourth, but just could not get over the hump. Got it to within 4 before falling back. Tyrese Maxey with 24. VJ Edscombe with 21. And I just feel like once they get it together, they're going to be fine. It's just a matter of getting there and then getting over the mental block, I guess, of the just the third quarter. I'm not sure what happens. It's like they come out and it's once they have time to cool down, they got to get re-warmed up and re-ramped up. And it takes them a while to get there. But no time to wallow in their sadness as they're back at it tonight against the Bucks, who will be without Giannis. And I think if I had to bet, I would say we're probably going to see Joe and Paul George tonight as well. So Sixers Bucks tonight down at, or I guess they're out in Milwaukee because the Flyers are taking on the Blues tonight down at the X. Looking to get back on track after losing to the Stars. Seems like they're playing well against the teams right around their level and just below, but the better team. So this will be a good test for them as they take on the Blues tonight down at the X. All right, yesterday's trivia question. Lots of people guessing, but lots of people were wrong. Mike Schmidt won consecutive Gold Gloves from 1976 to 1984. Played first base in 1985 before moving back to third in 86 and winning another Gold Glove. Who won the Gold Glove for the National League in 1985? That would be Tim Wallach of the Montreal Expos, one of 3 he won in his career. And then sticking with a baseball theme, Phillies, Ranger Suarez and Kyle Schwarber declined their qualifying offers as expected. I don't think that's a real surprise. Not many guys at all tended to accept them. Rumor that the Pirates were looking to make a run at Kyle Schwarber. I feel like they have a ton of money. Why not? And it is closer to Cincinnati for him. We'll see, though. Does he want to go to the Pirates? And I feel like as this plays out, the Phillies are either going to have to overpay or give him more years than what we want. And I just don't know if that's the answer. I just don't. As much as I like Kyle Schwarber, I don't know. I have to see how it plays out. I haven't really had time between the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers to get into a lot of Phillies hot stove. But, man, I think there's like a 5-year deal I'm not comfortable with. There were talks that if the Phillies extended it out, and made it a 6-year deal. It's a lot of years for a designated hitter who is close to his mid-30s. Leave it at that. Major League Baseball officially announced then, too, what we kind of already thought is that the Phillies and Twins will play on August 13th out at the Field of Dreams. Pretty cool experience. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's cool, but it'd be better if it was like the Phillies or Mets or Phillies Dodgers, like, or the Braves, like a rivalry thing. It's Phillies Twins. It's like, eh. But I get why they want an American. I get it, but cool experience. I'm not sure how it translates. They haven't done it for a year or so I forget how it actually translates onto TV. But that'll happen August 13th. Will Kyle Schwarber be there? That is the question. JT Realmuto, for that matter. All right, be sure to follow me on social media at Philly Jimbo on all platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. That's how you get alerted when videos post, including the Brotherly Birds breakdown, which we'll post tonight. Spread the word, subscribe, like, comment, all that other good stuff, as try to outsmart the algorithm to get more of my videos in the rotation. And then, of course, we are in the midst of our 3rd annual gift and food drive. Go to Give Butter. If you go to any of my social media, the QR code takes you right there. Any donation will help. And please, if you could, spread this to people at work. If you need extra flyers, give me a call. I can get them to you. But just want to try to help as many people as possible with this. So don't forget to donate. And then in about a week or so, we'll start getting into the reverse advent calendar, which is always fun for the kids. But anything you can give to help out our friends and neighbors from this area, and then all proceeds will benefit the Maddie N. Dixon Community Cupboard. This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. All right, it is Thursday. That means it's time for Throwback Thursday, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. They have you covered for all your Philly sports-based apparel needs. Tons of new Sixers stuff coming out. The ugly sweaters, they've added to their ugly sweater collection. Some very good ones, if I might add myself. If you want to do a little 6-7 in honor of the Sixers. But go to Philly Goat. Check out everything. Great for holiday gifts. I know we're kind of a little early for holiday shopping, but Philly Goat has something for everybody, even Aunt Sally, Grandma, Great-Grandma. So go to Philly Goat, use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, so for Throwback Thursday, we talked earlier in the week about the Phillies acquiring Bobby Abreu in a trade with the Tampa Bay Rays for Kevin Stocker. And I mentioned that Bobby Abreu was, and probably still is, one of the most polarizing players in all of Philly sports. And I feel like a lot of it is he became the poster child for that era of Phillies baseball. He was largely their best player and was relied on a lot while guys like Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, and Ryan Howard were developing. Played a little bit with Jim Thome as well. I don't want to take him off the hook, but Jim Thome was a fan favorite. So as I was thinking about this, I wanted to kind of dive in and look at the numbers because, I mean, is Bobby unfairly vilified here in Philadelphia? And I mean, during his time, his 9 or 8.5, whatever seasons you want to say in Philly, team averaged 81 wins. So they were about a 500 team. They had a couple of clunkers in there, and then there were a couple second, third place finishes. But upon further review, a lot of that stemmed from they had some solid players on offense. I mentioned Thome. You had guys like Rico Bronya, David Bell, who had a couple good games. Wasn't necessarily what they thought. But they had some solid guys. Placido Polanco the first time around, along with those young guys coming up, Pat Burrell. So offensively, it wasn't necessarily the problem. Did they run into some of the issues that this team does with hitting with runners in scoring position and the bats going cold? Sure, but I think that's just the nature of the game. The issue with this team was their pitching. And from a starting pitching perspective, they were very inconsistent. Very inconsistent. You had Kurt Schilling, then you had, all of a sudden, you thought Randy Wolf or Kevin Duckworth was going to be the answer. Vicente Padilla. And then Schilling was traded, and nobody really stepped up to become the ace. But they were solid from a starting pitcher. The bullpen was the issue. They never had a good bullpen. You had guys like Ricky Bottalico, who, again, was a solid guy, but not necessarily a guy that's going to move the needle. They just did not have what they needed. They had, like, back end of the bullpen, they had some good closers between, like, Papelbon. I believe Jose Mesa may have crossed over into this era, too. They just never had a good bullpen, and that's ultimately what cost them down the stretch. They contended all summer, a lot of those teams, and then faded in August and September. And then, of course, you throw in the fact that the Braves were dominating the division in them. Bobby Abreu put up borderline Hall of Fame numbers. So really, was it his fault that this team underachieved? Just wanted to kind of throw that out there, as I know a lot of people are anti-Bobby Abreu, but he sort of was just the right guy at the wrong time, if that makes sense. Had he maybe played a couple years later when the core of Rollins, Utley, and Howard were going into their prime, maybe we view him differently. If they had better pitching for Bobby when they were there, specifically the bullpen, maybe we look at Bobby different. So that's my Bobby Abreu throwback today, kind of keeping with the theme for this week. But Throwback Thursday is brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And let me know your thoughts on Bobby. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Am I being a Bobby Abreu apologist? Or am I just giving you what the research and the numbers say? All right, November 20th. It's going to be a heavy Eagles day. But we're going to go back to 1960. The Eagles upset the Giants at Yankee Stadium 17-10. They were down 10-0 at halftime when the D clamped down. Jimmy Carr returned a fumble for a touchdown. Tommy McDonald caught a touchdown reception in this game. But the play of the game came when Concrete Charlie, Chuck Bednarik, crushed Frank Gifford, forcing a fumble that the Eagles recovered to seal the game. You might have seen the picture of Chuck Bednarik standing over him, celebrating. He said, "This game is over." Unfortunately, Frank Gifford ended up with a concussion, missed the entire 61 season, and Frank Gifford and Chuck Bednarik are forever intertwined. The Eagles did carry that momentum to the 1960 NFL Championship. Now, I've seen the interviews, and even Frank Gifford has said it too, that when the picture looks like he's basically taunting Frank Gifford, he said he didn't know Gifford was knocked out. He was just celebrating that the game was over, delivering his iconic line about "this effing game is over." But the two of them ended up becoming friends. But the big hit, Frank Gifford got leveled by Chuck Bednarik on this day in 1960s. The Eagles beat the Giants 17-10 en route to carrying that momentum to the 1960 NFL Championship. All right, let's go back to 1986. And on this day in 1986, the Flyers beat the Blackhawks 5-1. Tim Kerr involved in all 5 goals for the Flyers, scoring 4 of them, assisting on the 5th. It was his 11th career hat trick, and it was the first of a 6-game winning streak for the Flyers. But Flyers beat the Blackhawks 5-1 on this day. Tim Kerr with 5 points, 4 goals, and an assist, being involved in every single goal. That does lead to today's trivia question. Kind of outside of the box here. Who is the Flyers' all-time leader in goalie wins? Kind of a layup here, but hit me up on the Discord channel. First link in the description. Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. But let me know, who is the Flyers' all-time leader in goalie wins? And that leads nicely into what we're thankful for. It is the Thanksgiving season. All through the next couple weeks, we're going to be talking about what we should be thankful for as Philly sports fans. And today, sticking with the Flyers theme, we're thankful for the Flyers, specifically Keith Jones and Danny Briere, who have really taken this team from the depths of just nothingness, and they kind of have an identity now. They have a plan. They've stuck to it, which is impressive. It would have been very easy a couple of those times to cave to the pressure and go out of what the plan is, but they're trusting their process. Rick Tocchet is a solid NHL coach, not necessarily a guy I think that is like, oh my goodness, like not a polarizing. He just comes in, tries to get the best out of his players, former Flyer, former NHLer. So I think it's a good fit for this team. He has this young team playing well. Obviously, Mishkov is starting to come around, looking for him to kind of turn it on now that he's a little bit back in shape. This rebuild now for the Flyers is in the next steps. So that's, I think, why we're thankful. Are they expected to make the playoffs this year? No. Would it be shocking if they did? Also, no. So they're still about a year or two away from being about a year or two away, but they're actually fun to watch. They have some stable goaltending. I would love to see, and hopefully this remains the same, that Dan Vladar this is what you're going to get from him and not necessarily just kind of a flash in the pan here. But the fans are backpacking the X. They're building a contender. And within the next couple years, they're going to be a team to deal with. Could even, like I said, could even make the playoffs this year. So the Flyers are back. Flyers hockey is back. And that is why we're thankful for specifically Keith Jones and Danny Briere for the job they've done in bringing the excitement back to hockey in Philadelphia. All right, let's go to 1988. And about 10 years after the miracle at the Meadowlands, the Eagles pull off another dramatic win at the Meadowlands. This was a back-and-forth game with the Giants. Chris Carter recovered a Keith Jackson fumble in the end zone to tie it. The game would go into overtime. In overtime, the Eagles were driving, got to the Giants' 13, attempted a field goal on third down. Luis Zendejas' kick was blocked. It was picked up by Clyde Simmons, who returned it 13 yards for the touchdown, giving the Eagles the walk-off victory in overtime. Now, Bill Parcells argued that the offense cannot return a blocked kick. And he's right, except for the fact that this kick went behind the line. So once that kick went behind the line, it's a live ball. Clyde was able to pick it up and go into the end zone. Now, this was a huge game from a standings perspective because both teams then ended up 7-5 after this game, and they would end up being tied at the end of the season. But due to the tiebreakers, the Eagles got the edge and won the division there in 1988. But I remember this game well. I remember being like, oh my goodness, can you recover a fumble for a touchdown? When Chris Carter did that. And then, of course, the Clyde Simmons, it was one of the more exciting games of my early Eagles career. But the Eagles beat the Giants 23-17 in overtime when Clyde Simmons returned a blocked field goal, an Eagles blocked field goal for a touchdown in overtime. And then 10 years later from there, the number 7 Temple Owls welcomed the number 5 Michigan State Spartans to the Apollo of Temple, as it was called, and they sent them home with a 60-59 loss. This game was exciting down the stretch. Pepe Sanchez hit 2 free throws with a half second left. Temple was down 15 points at one point in that game. The new rule that year in NCAA rewarded the defense for tie-up. So every time Temple would tie up Michigan State with that suffocating D, they would get the ball. So that was able to help Temple come back. And it actually coincidentally became Temple's 1,500th win in program history. They have since gone over the 2,000 mark, still remain, I believe, top 5 all-time in college basketball for wins. But Temple, number 7 in the country, beat number 5 Michigan State 60-59 at the Apollo of Temple. It was not even the Leah Core Center yet. The Apollo of Temple on this day in 1998. I was there, and contrary to what many people say, I did not step on Pepe Sanchez's ankle. And then finally, good day for Phillies as far as MVPs on this day. 2006, Ryan Howard was named MVP. 2007, Jimmy Rollins was named MVP as well. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention this. On this day, back in 2023, the Eagles traveled to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. This was the Nick Sirianni yelling at the Chiefs fans. It's kind of when we thought, okay, what's going on with this team? This is pre the meltdown, but that did happen on this day in 2023. On this day in 1998, Temple, number 7 in the country, beat number 5 Michigan State 60-59. 10 years earlier, Clyde Simmons helped the Eagles beat the Giants 23-17 when he returned a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Tim Kerr scored 5 points, including 4 goals on this day in 1986 as the Flyers beat the Blackhawks 5-1. And then, of course, the iconic hit, Chuck Bednarik on Frank Gifford. Eagles win 17-10 up at Yankee Stadium on this day in 1960. We'll have more on the Sixers, Flyers, and Eagles tomorrow. And, of course, anything we hear about Phillies hot stove rumors. It's Friday, so we'll spend Fridays with AI. Don't forget, check out the Brotherly Birds Breakdown, which will be out later this evening. I'm telling you, big weekend. You got Union playoffs coming up, Eagles-Cowboys. It's a good weekend to just put your feet up and just watch. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for November 20th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.